Good afternoon, class. My name is Sebastian Braxton, and my textual analysis was conducted on the newly designed British Petroleum logo from a few years ago. Now, my question is, would you pay $1 million for a hunch? Someone wanted you to design something, or you wanted someone else to design something, and they said, well, I think I have a hunch of what I can design for you. Would you pay them $1 million? And indeed, Pepsi has paid $1 million for a newly designed logo, and British Petroleum paid 136,000 pounds for the logo of which we're talking about right now. And I believe this cartoon kind of communicates the fact that he's presenting it as if it's a hunch, but in actuality, he's very much aware of why he's encouraging his dad not to go in there because of the circumstances that have happened. And I believe that that will come out through the presentation. So today we're just going to look at the information transfer theory of organizational communication as a background to my project. We'll talk about the scholarly basis for my methodology. We'll actually go through some of my findings from the content and ideological analysis of the BP logo, and then some conclusions and implications. First of all, the information transfer model utilizes the metaphor of the pipeline. Information is kind of just flowing one direction, and there's not any feedback. And so I think perhaps a transactional approach could also be taken to logos based on their consumer attitudes and how well they're designed, and et cetera, et cetera. But the scope of this presentation and this analysis was simply to focus on the effectiveness of communicating and coding and embedding those messages inside their logo of British Petroleum, and the ability of the audience to extract those messages from this particular corporate visual identity. I'll also look at some of the difficulties to that information transfer that made it difficult at different times for BP to communicate through its corporate visual identity the various values that it wanted to convey to its consumers through information overload, distortion, and ambiguity. Now, my content analysis that I conducted was based upon a scholarly article in which they did a content analysis of the McDonald's logo over a set period of time from its beginning till now. And they adopted Peirce's semiotic model, which has the representative, the sign itself, the referent or the object, the sign to which it's referring, as well as the interpretant, which is what is the effect upon the viewer. As a result of that, they came out with several implications. One, that the arches were very recognizable, and therefore, because it was commonly seen in nature, commonly seen in architecture, you would easily have immediate brand recognition, which is one of the qualifications of a good, well-designed logo. Yellow was one of the most popular colors for 5 to 12-year-old children. And so as a result, this communicated the fact that this was a sign that was basically referring to McDonald's being a very kid-friendly environment, and that this was the intended effect that it was to have upon the viewer, and the fact that people always take their kids to McDonald's. Thirdly, red was something that communicated excitement and hunger, so that this was a fun, exciting place for kids to have food. And so red was associated with excitement and hunger. And they found that as McDonald's has gotten better and better at integrating these elements in their logo, they've seen a significant change in consumer attitude, revenue increasing by 15%. And so I wanted to adopt a similar content analysis in looking at the elements of the design as well as the colors and integrating that. Now, BP logo, this is what I found is, first of all, this is, if you haven't noticed in the slides, there's a sunflower there on the previous slides, and the BP logo is exactly designed to be a abstraction of the sunflower, with at the center the Greek helio symbol of the sun. And so abstraction is actually noted to distill down something that we normally see in nature to its typical features, like the sunflower or the sun there. And that this usually increases familiar meaning and also increases correct recognition. So people just pick up on the logo faster. They feel like they've seen it more times than they probably actually have. Also, you notice that the natural use of the sunflower and the sun. This helps people to feel familiar with the logo, which allows them to, again, have greater recognition of the brand. It has more meaning, and also the sun is associated with energy, and BP wanted to communicate that it wants to use energy and to also be sensitive to green, the green movement, and to create green forms of energy, not just oil. And so they wanted to communicate that through the sunflower, which is pretty effective, and the sun kind of symbolic of all forms of energy. You'll also notice the balance and the symmetry of the logo, which creates a positive effect upon the viewer. You just kind of like to look at it. It doesn't offend you, it doesn't strike you, and it's very bright, it's very effervescent. And that goes into the colors, which the white communicates sincerity in the referential meaning of color and color theory. And also the yellow communicates excitement, as we looked at the McDonald's logo, and the green having a great association with the green movement of our day, as well as with communicating the idea of being sensitive to the environment in all of its energy forms. And so all these different elements kind of are communicated and being transferred through this particular image, this symbol. Now, some conclusions and implications are, first of all, to me, how to develop a corporate visual identity and corporate visual communication. I think the implications are enormous if there was more studies of the alignment of color and design and how these can enhance and moderate each other. Also, I think BP has achieved good recognition of positive effect and familiar meaning, and which has resulted in positive consumer attitudes, even though they've had some challenges. And the fact that what they've tried to communicate experienced a little bit of distortion because of the Deepwater Horizon incident. But I also think the helio symbol is a little bit ambiguous. Not everyone is familiar with that symbol, and so I think that can affect what BP is trying to communicate, as well as information overload. I think the logo is slightly a little more complex, which makes it a little dense and harder to really digest immediately on the surface. Corporate visual identity changes can also lead the way in rebranding, and I think that's one of the big implications of my project, that BP created this logo before they actually started moving into green technology and green forms of energy. And so this kind of corporate visual identity kind of led the way for that. And even though they had the Deepwater Horizon incident, they were still able to recover from that because of how strong their corporate visual identity was. And so these are some of my references of where I derived my research. Very great and compelling articles. And I just hope to continue to learn more through this.